My name is Sevkor Atrella Vensis. I am a squadron master in the Space Navy of the Servian Republic, and I have been sent to find a weapon that is our only chance at victory in a war my nation has practically lost. My squadron is insignificant. My name is not known. My deeds are of little note. But if I do not succeed in my task, everything I have sworn to defend will be destroyed. I cannot be allowed to fail. I will enter the quarantined star system of Sol, defeat or evade the automated sentinels that so zealously guard it, enlist the help of the species they keep sealed, and return with their aid to bolster my Republic's flagging military. If I do not succeed in this task, then I will have to die trying. Like the wandering swordsman of old, I will return with a bloody blade or impaled upon one. Such is the resolve of the Servian fleet.
Wormhole transit complete, a dull voice announces. I blink. Wormhole transit complete. Squadron Master, report to the command deck.
I'm in my quarters at the moment, transcribing a message to my family to send before we enter the null zone. Half the Republic's scientists were practically murdering each other to get assigned to my fleet, just so they could study it. Maybe after the victory they'll get the chance. But first, there has to be a victory. I shut off my audio transcriber and stand from my private workstation, tapping on my wrist console to hail the command deck. This is the Squadron Master, I say. I am reporting as requested. I remember the 17 scrapped drafts in the digital trash bin of my transcriber. What is the estimated time until we reach the null zone? I ask.
We're holding just outside the null zone. Protocol dictates you submit a full report to Republic Command prior to entry.
That's good. I have just enough time to send a message back to my family. I take a few precious moments to record what may be the final report my loved ones ever see. Now there's a disturbing thought. I shake it quickly out of my mind. My squadron is competent, as am I. Whatever we find in the null zone around Sol, whether it be an ancient fleet of mechanical guardians or only the relics of a long-dead race, we will meet it with all the strength, hope, and willpower the Servian Republic has to offer. If I fail, then I will at least die knowing I did my best. But I cannot be allowed to fail. I force down any doubt I may have and send the final draft of my message, including instructions in the case of my death, to the transmission array on the capital world of Servia. If it's still there to receive, that is, there's an even more disturbing thought. I cannot bury this fear like the last one. If my republic falls to the slaving Alrev, or becomes a vassal to the imperialist Kavesis, then it will mean the end of democracy in known space, the end of freedom. The Servian people might never break their chains. What fate could be more horrible than that? I have a task to complete, though, a mission of vital importance. I cannot allow myself to dwell on such things. I stand from my seat, don my squadron master's uniform, and leave my quarters for the command deck. Along the way, to ease my worries, I bring up reports of the war back home. None of them look good. Against the Alrev alone, we were evenly matched. Now, with their Kavesi allies thrown in the mix, the Servian military is utterly outmatched. As of 3 days ago, even Servia itself is under threat. The bulk of the Republic's navy is clustered there to defend it, but even the common citizens know it was only a matter of time. My homeworld is besieged, and I am watching from the furthest periphery of known space. Any other day, I'd have been straining at the leash to return to Servia and give the Kavesi and Alrev fleets a good hammering. But today is not any other day. And when I enlist the aid of the genetically engineered weapons contained in the null zone, my 7 warships will appear like 7,000. I turn a corner and reach the command deck. clearing idle thoughts from my mind. The blast door in front of me trundles open, and I take my place at the command of my fleet. "Attention!" a Marine sergeant snaps. "Squadron master on deck!" The best and brightest officers of the fleet stand from their posts and salute me. I return it. At ease, I turn to my fleet liaison. "What is the status of the fleet?" I ask.
"All ships nominal, sir,"
she reports.
"The SNS Breaker of Chains requests permission to send a probe inside the null zone."
The Breaker of Chains is one of only 2 destroyers in my fleet. My flagship, the SNS Ardent in Struggle, is one of our last remaining heavy cruisers. All the ships of my fleet, from the torpedo corvettes to the Ardent, were built for speed above all else. Even the bulky troop ships in whose holds I am meant to carry hundreds of thousands of humans have been modified with more powerful engines to outpace the Republic's enemies. If we do not complete our task in time, it will be as if we had never completed it at all. "We have no time to waste," I command my liaison. "Send the Avenging Sun to reconnoiter briefly, then return. Are we clear?" We are. The liaison relays my command. One of my corvettes makes a brave foray into the null zone. The null zone itself is a sphere 30 light hours in diameter, allegedly centered around the star known as Sol. My officers have been probing it intensely since our arrival, though not for very long, and they have failed to penetrate 1 iota within its boundaries. Not even light can pass out of it. No ship has ever returned from it before. I'm not sure if any ever entered, nor do I know what happened to them if they did. I watch as the sensor profile of the Avenging Sun disappears from my holographic map. The sensors on my ship are so fine-tuned that they can detect individual hydrogen atoms floating through space, and so powerful that they can do this consistently at distances of up to 1 light hour. The Ardent is parked within visual range of the null zone, staring at a gap in the star charts the size of an entire solar system, and yet I have no idea what's going on beyond that barrier. Gods, I hate it. I might have been impressed by the technology involved if I wasn't so anxious at the lack of contact inside. There could be 1,000 warships staring me in the face right now, and I wouldn't know it.
"The Avenging Sun left a message, Squadron Master,"
my liaison reports. She's the second most important officer on the whole ship. She oversees communications and cooperation throughout the entire squadron. Even, apparently, the ships that could no longer communicate.
"They gave us an ETA for their return."
Well, that's wonderful, I reply. I love knowing the variables.
"If I may, sir,"
my liaison begins. She hesitates before continuing.
"I'm afraid."
Likewise, I reassure her. If you weren't, there would be something wrong. My mind wanders to what I'd seen on my journey. The Servian Republic sent us out here based on rumors and relics, a sign of their desperation as the tide began to turn. Now, after all the horror and all the beauty, I stand at the precipice of harnessing an inconceivable power, prepared to speak to a species created to fight in a war between gods and break them free of their prison in exchange for their aid. If I weren't doing this out of desperation, I would have chalked it up to hubris long ago.
"Do you think we can do it, sir?"
my liaison asks.
"Rescue the humans?"
That is, if they even want to be rescued. Desperation and fatigue often make me forget that what I am dealing with is a race of sapient weapons. An entire planet, perhaps more, populated by organisms designed by an ancient race to massacre empires far greater than ours. And the humans were so effective at it that they were sealed away. Gods, what if, by disabling the null zone, I and my men unleash that deadly power upon the innocents of the galaxy? The death toll would be incalculable. How I look my crew in the eyes, knowing the horrors I am prepared to let loose, I have no idea.
But, as my orders demand, I do it all the same. I don't know, I admit. I don't know a great many things about this mission. What little I do know only serves to frighten. I and my ships are embarking on the greatest gamble in the Servian Republic's history. So far it had paid off, but our luck is not infinite. It has to fail some day. And when I am frightened, I tell my liaison, I comfort myself with the knowledge that I will do my best, that no matter what I face, I will do my best to face it well. That is what we should have faith in today. Not faith in prophecies, nor in superweapons, but faith in ourselves, faith in each other. Such is the backbone of the Servian race. The liaison salutes in the old fashion, the ceremonial fashion, the kind used by pompous politicians during ceremonies and venerable grandparents watching their grandchildren march to war. For such a young woman to use it is unusual. To me, it is a relic of our bygone golden age.
Long live the Republic!
Hopefully, when I return from my mission, my people will greet me with precisely that salute, to show the galaxy that our real golden age has only begun. Long live the Republic! I return her salute. Let's ensure that it does. The avenging sun does not return for some time. A full Servian day, in fact. I grow steadily more uneasy. I consider sending a follow-up party into the null zone many times, more than I'd care to admit, but each time I dismiss the notion. There's no need to split my forces further, and if something inside the zone really did destroy the avenging sun, I have no wish to feed it even more of my ships. Finally, I can wait no longer. Good men die every second I delay. Bring weapons and shields to full power, I order. Issue a fleet-wide combat stations alert. My officers scramble to obey the command. Have us move forward, 1/10 speed. The Servian Republic's last hope sails, slowly, toward the null zone. We're going in. After what seems like years of a slow, cautious approach, I almost feel relieved when the ardent in struggle makes it into the null zone. All our sensors are blinded. Even visual contact is obscured by what looks like a massive ocean of ink. But we are finally inside the null zone. And hopefully, the sensor blindness should apply to our enemies as well. What can't see us can't harm us now, can it? At least, I hope that's how it is. There are still far too many variables to be comfortable with. We move through the null zone at a crawl until we reach the other side. I order a full sensor sweep across the fleet, and find to my delight that the sensor screen is no longer in effect. A second and third sweep confirm the same results. It never hurts to be secure. Interestingly, I notice that we can see outside the null zone just fine. All fleet sensors are able to probe through what used to be an impenetrable barrier. Clearly, it's a one-way mechanism. My 3 sensor sweeps all give me data inside and past the sensor barrier with no loss in resolution, highlighting a number of ancient defense systems that have long since fallen silent, and the corpses of the ships they destroyed. The star system is a graveyard, a colossal prison, filled with the remains of those who tried and failed to spring the prisoners. Even being here chills me to the bone. I desperately want to order a close-up scan of the inert defenses, if only to ensure they are inert. But caution wins out in the end. Let sleeping animals lie. Continue into the system, I tell the navigation officer. He obeys immediately. I turn to my liaison next. Have the fleet follow the Ardent in struggle and match our speed. Inform them that our destination is the planetary body third closest to the star. Make it snappy. She does likewise. I can tell I'm not alone in wanting to be far away from whatever engines of destruction have been set to guard the outer system. We've barely made it past the null zone when we encounter the wreck of the avenging sun drifting in space. It's gutted from end to end. Only the outer hull remains, like an armored shell shed by some animal. Even the black box was destroyed by what looks to have been a single powerful blast. Try as I might, I still can't determine who fired. This time, I think I'm better off not knowing. After performing funerary rites for the crew of the Avenging Sun and cremating their bodies in the Servian way with a nuclear torpedo, I and my fleet set off for the human home planet. We were unable to transcribe its name from any of the ancient sites we visited, all relics of a lost and highly advanced precursor race, but that is of little concern compared to more pressing matters. The most crucial of these matters is, of course, if the humans will join our cause at all. The second most crucial is how the hell we get past the barrier, and the third, final problem I face is the fact that there may not be a republic left to go back to. But I can't focus on that one either. I compile a report on what I've encountered so far, and have my communications people encrypt it to ensure confidentiality. Afterward, I divert power to the communications arrays to boost my signal all the way to Servia. If nothing else, it will give the Republic hope, and hope may be all they need to hold out until my return. The rest of the journey is spent preparing for our arrival at the human planet. I doubt they'll give us any trouble, primitive as they are, but not a man or woman in the fleet isn't afraid of the beings we aim to unleash. The race that created them held power we can scarcely hope to comprehend. Their conflicts were enough to erase entire solar systems out of collateral damage. I've seen rings around stars, made of the debris from what they call a small skirmish. If these beings created humans to fight in that kind of war, with those kinds of weapons, I shudder to think what power humanity holds. I shudder to think of the malice that might come along with it. My psychologist chalks it up to stress. The defense lines at home crumbling, the importance of my mission, the peril that now surrounds me, all are catalysts for fear and nervousness. I don't know why I've become afraid of humans instead of them. The psychologist tells me I have a fear of the unknown. When the time comes to make first contact, to send the message to humanity and hope I like their answer, I almost hesitate. Almost. The message is simple, taken from the most recent document we can find on their language. It's a miracle the file's around at all, after so many millennia of decay. There's a brief period of silence before their response. I read it aloud to a silent deck. Greetings, Servians. This message speaks for the United States of America, the most powerful of Earth's 195 human nations. We have heard your proposal, and we are considering it. We would like to meet with your leader in a diplomatic setting to outline further details. Regardless of our final decision, the United States government wishes to establish and maintain friendship between our two nations. The circular symbol, some kind of national seal depicting a winged and feathered animal, is included at the bottom of the message. Another translation, in what I assume is their new language, has been sent alongside it. The deck is so quiet that I can hear the breaths of my officers. No one dares to speak for some time. I take upon myself the task of breaking the silence. Well, that seems promising. Officers, return to your posts. The Ardent in Struggle's command deck becomes a hive of activity once more. Other transmissions are sent over the course of the next local day, all in response to our broadcast, all bearing wishes of goodwill in our fight, and all coming from parties very interested in our offer of modern Servian technology to bolster their current status. I set my officers to the task of understanding the residents of this planet. The more we know about them, the easier it will be to enlist them to our cause. New information is constantly exchanged between our two races. First contact with a primitive species is hardly unheard of, and there are protocols in place for precisely this scenario. But that is a task better left to a professional diplomat. The fact that my ship has none aboard only serves to underline the desperation of our mission. The human race is an enigma to us, and we are surely an enigma to them, and I am the man in charge of ending this state of mutual ignorance. I can command ships in a war zone, plot slingshot orbits around planets, and lead Marines through a breach in an enemy hull, but I have never before been sent to negotiate. If the Republic was able to send someone qualified, they would have, but they did not. They sent me, and I just have to do my best. I arrange a meeting with the leadership of Earth's most powerful nation, thinking it wise to gain them as an ally first. They eagerly accept. After a short and intense briefing on how to act and what to expect, which I sadly confess I understood very little of, I enter my shuttle and descend to the soil of Earth. I find myself landing in a field in front of a large white building and staring down a coterie of black-uniformed human security officers. Looking at them, with their small stature and weak bodies, I'm shocked to think I was afraid of them at all. I wonder just how such a flimsy race could ever have been used as an army. Then I see them move. My gods, they're fast. I knew from the information exchanges that human reaction time was faster than the galactic average, but seeing it firsthand is incredible. Even Republic Navy officers, men and women trained for years to react quickly to an evolving situation, can't match the thinking speed of even an untrained human. It's an incredible power, and it can be weaponized very easily. One of the humans steps forward. A senior officer, old and with gray hair, in a different suit than his men. Strange. I was told I'd be meeting the American president. "Greetings," he says. "On behalf of the United States of America and all of humankind, I'd like to welcome you and your people onto the soil of Earth." Oh. I finally realize it. He is the president. In the Servian Republic, we make distinction between classes easily visible. I'm reminded of this every time I hear of an officer being killed by sniper fire. America, I finally remember, does not have such flagrant distinctions. I'm messing up already, and I haven't even started talking yet. Gods, I wish I had more time to prepare. Or a diplomat on hand. Or a fleet of dreadnoughts while I'm at it. But I guess I'll just have to make do. I step down off my shuttle's landing ramp. I have no armed escort, but a party of Republic Marines can land here shortly if the space fleet detects anything amiss. Or, if the Americans prove hostile, an energy lance from my flagship can turn this entire city into molten slag. I struggle to remember the human greeting. I have so many things to keep in mind, and so little time to memorize them. This mission is impossible. I do it all the same. "Thank you, Mr. President," I say. "I am Sevkor Atrella Vensis, a squadron master in the Space Navy of the Servian Republic, and I am honored to make your acquaintance." I remember the way I'm supposed to greet him. I extend a 3-fingered hand for him to grasp. He takes my hand in a flash, shaking it rapidly. Humans do everything rapidly. I had to modify my translator before landing to slow down their speech, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to understand a word this man is saying. "I am President Isaac Brown, and the honor is all mine." We both knew each other's names before this. I am not sure why we introduced ourselves at all. I don't think he knows either. "Come with me, please," he says, gesturing to the White House behind him. "Let's speak inside the White House." It certainly does look white. I follow President Isaac Brown and his security detail inside the White House, which his people uninventively named the White House. Gods, that's a stupid name. Still, don't they call their planet, I suppose we have to concede defeat in that, if nothing else. Most galactic species couldn't name an astral body if our very lives depended on it.
So, tell me more about your enemies.
Isaac Brown chatters on the way to the White House. I can tell he was trying to speak and move slowly to accommodate my slower thinking speed, and I appreciate the gesture, but it's still a bit faster than what I am used to.
I believe in only picking fights I know are worth fighting.
Right now, walking on this planet of superspeed, I feel like an earthly snail given sapience. Even their days pass by faster than ours. Likewise, I agree. The Atrov, our principal foe, are enslavers. They conquer and subjugate inferior species, judging them unworthy of freedom by the sheer fact they were put in chains in the first place. If they were the ones being beaten instead, I think they'd begin to realize the flaws in that logic. Isaac Brown nods. If I remember my training correctly, I think that means he agrees.
And the Kavesses?
They're less of a conqueror species and more of scavengers, if anything, I explain. They join wars on the side less hostile to them, tipping the scales in their favor and securing valuable worlds and resources in the process. They've made as many allies as enemies by such tactics. The Servian Republic has allies as well. Now that our core planets are besieged, however, they are nowhere to be found.
And your Republic?
Isaac Brown asks.
I've heard only wonderful things.
A representative democracy with strong martial traditions. We believe in protecting those innocents who cannot protect themselves. Many lesser nations owe us a great debt for protecting them from being conquered or destroyed. Now that we are encircled by enemies, however, none of them seem eager to repay it.
And what is it you ask from my country?
Isaac Brown asks. I am aware that I am supposed to address him simply as President Brown, but I will never think of him as that. Human social norms are different from ours. Soldiers. Able-bodied soldiers willing to fight for democracy and freedom among the stars. I pause for what must seem like eternity to him. Humans are many times faster than all other sapients, I explain. I have not yet told him why they are this way, that his race was created as a weapon, nor do I want to until the time is right. Let him process this revelation one bit at a time. One of your people would be worth several of mine. With only a few 100 million human soldiers, we will be able to win the war easily.
All other sapients?
Isaac Brown asks. Everything on Earth is, except for snails and other slow forms of life.
Why?
That is exactly what I was hoping he would not ask.
It seems improbable.
Let's focus on what matters most. I evade the question. We will get to that in due time. First, I must know your answer to my proposal.
I don't have the authority to declare war,
Isaac Brown says.
Only Congress, a body of 535 elected representatives, can make that call. But I promise you, I will pitch it to them.
He looks solemn. He knows that, with every day that goes by, more Servians will perish. Speed is of paramount importance now. I understand fully, I say. I understand how politics can tie the hands of justice. I've seen it happen before. I am prepared to offer advanced medical technology to your country at no cost, as a gesture of goodwill toward your people. This offer will also extend to every nation willing to at least entertain my negotiations.
At no cost?
Isaac Brown exclaims.
How much?
I will not send down materials, I advise him, but I will share with your medical officials all of the Republic's knowledge on ailments and their cures. If you choose to aid us in our war, I will repay your nation with even more advanced technology. His eyes light up. In that moment, I know I have gained an ally. Everything after that is just formality. My meeting with President Isaac Brown is short. I would love to speak with him further, if only to secure his aid in the war back home. But I have 192 nations left to convince, and precious little time left to do it in. I transmit regular reports to known Republic positions, places where I hope they're still holding on, but the null zone makes it impossible to receive anything back. I don't even know if there is a Republic left to transmit to anymore. Most of my time over the next few days is spent in diplomatic meetings. I speak to humans from all over the globe. Just rulers and tyrants, rich rulers and paupers, powerful rulers and feeble ones. I can't afford to make distinctions in which people I speak to. Anyone willing to offer help is eagerly taken up on their offer. I keep the Ardent in struggle in orbit of Earth, as well as my fleet of troop ships, and I send the 5 remaining ships in my fleet out to probe the null zone to see if we can escape the same way we came in. Most of our probes are shot down by defensive batteries. That's troubling. But now at least I know what killed the Avenging Sun. By now the people of Earth have come around to our side. We already have more people volunteering to fight than my fleet can fit in our troop ships. Planetside factories are already at work constructing the designs I have given them, but the task is painstakingly slow and expensive. Servians had hundreds of years to make it from the early space age to where we are now. I don't expect Earth to get it done in a matter of days. I have my men train a select group of volunteers, all active or former military, to operate modern Republic weapons in as close as I can get to a real combat scenario. I load the best of them onto my flotilla of warships, along with all the supplies I need to bring them back to Republic space. Earth has already begun construction of the infrastructure needed to build a fleet of their own. With luck, they'll have ships out fast enough to play a part in our victory. That'll be a sight. After a week of searching, my probes finally find a safe route through the null zone. It's a tight fit, but my ships can just barely run the gauntlet to escape. I'm preparing my fleet for the journey back home when the situation at hand drastically changes. I thought that our distance from the war would save Earth from discovery. Looking at the status map, I am forced to admit I was wrong. 32 Alrev warships have entered the null barrier and are heading at full speed straight for Earth. I can only conclude that they located us based on the regular transmissions I've been sending back home, but that's irrelevant now. If the Alrev make it to Earth, they'll flatten any primitive resistance the humans can muster and enslave all 8 billion of that world's inhabitants. I can't allow that to happen. We've lost enough worlds to that scourge already. Bring the fleet about to intercept, I order. Have our troop ships hold back in the Kuiper belt. We can't afford for them to be lost, but I want every warship we have bearing down on those Alrev. It's a suicide mission. We're outnumbered more than 5 to 1, and outgunned even more heavily. My ships are designed for speed. They're not built for slugging it out in open battles. The Alrev warships are. Unless my human crews, none of which have ever performed their duties outside of a simulation, are good enough to nullify that disadvantage, we will all die in the cold and uncaring void. But I give the order all the same. Not one soul under my command objects. Such is the resolve of the Servian Republic, and such is the resolve of humankind. I turn to my liaison. Have the humans take up their assigned positions, I order. It's our only chance against the Alrev fleet. She protests.
Sir, they're not fully trained. We haven't had the time.
I know that, I snap. I'm not an idiot. You think I'd be ordering this if I had another option? Get those humans to their posts, or we all die when the Alrev engage us. There's no argument she can make against that logic. The human crews are sent to their stations. You were feared once, I speak to them on the fleet-wide channel. Millennia ago, A species capable of snuffing out suns created you to win their wars, and they feared your power so much that they sealed you behind a barrier that has lasted to this day. Today that barrier is broken. Today, a nation of slavers and destroyers comes for your home to ruin everything you hold dear. Don't fight for Servia today. Don't fight for the Republic. Fight for your families. Fight for your homes. Fight for Earth. And show them why your kind is feared. Our two fleets enter weapons range. The Alrev send a volley of missiles toward us. We answer in kind with our particle lances. Immediately, the disparity between us and humanity is apparent. My ship's human crews react many times faster than their Servian counterparts, dodging or shooting down nearly all of the Alrev barrage. Their ships attempt to evade our particle beams in similar fashion, but the speed at which humans track their targets is unmatched. Lance after lance strikes the Alrev fleet's shields. Focus on their flagship, I order. Take out their high command. A standard Republic battle tactic. It hasn't failed us yet. My gunners begin a blistering barrage of lance fire at the dreadnought in the center of the Alrev formation. They return fire with a vengeance, but we're still out of range of their heavy guns. With humans working the point defense network, none of the Alrev missiles get through. I focus on the dreadnought, trusting the living weapons to do what they were built for. The Alrev ship's shields absorb our first and second volleys, then the third, fourth, and fifth. But on the sixth barrage they break. Our seventh lance salvo strikes thick Alrev Navy armor. We still have a long way to go. The dreadnought pulls back behind a screen of smaller craft in order to recover its shields. My sensors report 20 Alrev vessels closing hard on our formation. They want to finish us off, and they want it badly. I'm not going to let that happen. Gunners, target their forwardmost ship and retarget once it's gone. Engines, full reverse thrust. Keep us out of range of their heavy guns. PDCs, keep it up. You're doing wonderfully. Only 6 missiles have struck our shields so far. Lacking any energy-based weapons to fire at this distance, the Alrev fleet is forced to use kinetics. They're toothless against human-manned defensive batteries. Our particle beams, in contrast, have never been more devastating. Strike after strike pounds the Alrev ships' hulls. Their shields and armor melt away. After losing more than half their number, 13 ships in all, the Alrev forward element is forced to pull back. My fleet reports no significant damage. The Eternal Liberty was hit hardest, suffering heavy fire to its forward shields, but it can endure. I pull it back to the rear of our formation as my Ardent begins pounding their capital ships. 1, 2, 3, 4 salvos land true against an Alrev battleship. They're meant to take hits, but even they can only sustain so much. After my 10th barrage, the vessel shatters in two from the sheer force of my particle guns. Its compatriots don't wish to suffer the same fate. My flagship is bombarded by frantic hails from their dreadnought.
"We surrender!"
the Alrev commander desperately pleads.
"I beg you, allow my ships to escape. I offer you all my slaves and plunder in exchange."
Alrev warships are crewed mostly by slaves, with a large marine contingent aboard to keep them in line. Their 18 remaining warships have 100,000 slaves aboard. Today, those people become free. I am Squadron Master Sevkor Atrella Vensis of the Servian Republic, I announce to my foes. I'm not just speaking to the commander. I'm speaking to all the people his vessels will reach. All the Alrev and Kavesis back home on the front lines. And I know just what I'm going to say to those slaving imperialist wastes of life. And I accept your proposal. Release your slaves immediately, and your ships may leave unmolested. But when your commander asks you what has become of your fleet, give them a message to prepare for what is coming. I stare directly into the singular eye of the Alrev commander, as if trying to burn a hole into his brain. Tell them that we have come to this star system in search of a weapon. As you can see, I gesture to my status map, where 12 Alrev ships float crippled in space. We have found it.
What is this weapon?
The commander asks. They call themselves humans, I tell him. Remember that. When the tyrant you serve sees Republic troops batter down his palace doors and is thrown in irons to the slaves he tormented, he will die with the knowledge that humans were the ones to end his despotic rule.